She thought marrying a rich man meant her struggles were over. But that mansion held storms no one warned her about. They met in Brooklyn, under streetlights that flickered like promises. Janelle was a dark-skinned black woman, with dreams bigger than the block, and Caleb was the kind of white boy who grew up knowing what old money smelled like. He loved her fire, said her laugh felt like sunlight in winter, and when he proposed, with a diamond so big it almost looked fake, Janelle thought maybe, just maybe, this was her fairy tale starting. But every fairy tale got its villain, don't it? The first time Janelle met her, it was at the Langford estate, a sprawling mansion tucked behind black iron gates in upstate New York. House so big it had its own zip code. Miss Evelyn Langford stood at the top of those marble stairs like she was royalty, graceful, dressed like old money, smiling without warmth. "Ah, so this is her," Evelyn said, eyes scanning Janelle like she was a smudge on polished glass. "You're vibrant, vibrant." A word that tried to be polite but held claws underneath. Caleb squeezed her hand, whispered, "Don't mind her." But Janelle felt it, that cold air wrapping around her pride. That first wound didn't bleed, but it bruised. Over dinner, Evelyn asked questions with the sweetness of syrup and the sharpness of broken glass. "What does your father do, dear?" "He passed when I was 13, Janelle answered. "Oh, and your mother?" "Retired nurse, lives in Flatbush." Evelyn gave a smile thinner than a thread. "How spirited." Janelle held her fork like it was armor, smiled back just enough. "You mean strong?" Evelyn sipped her wine, eyes glinting. "Yes, that too." That night, Caleb apologized, held her in the guest room with walls so white they felt sterile. "She just needs time," he said. But Janelle knew better. Time don't fix venom. It just gives it space to spread. And when Evelyn told her, casually, like she was talking about the weather, "You should consider a simpler dress for the wedding, something more fitting, something not so ghetto," that's when the fire in Janelle's chest stopped flickering and started burning. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She smiled and started planning. Because if they thought she came from nothing, they had no idea what resilience looked like in heels. And baby, the dress she chose, it cost more than Evelyn's pearls and pride combined. You stay with me now, 'cause this ain't just about lace and money. It's about a woman standing tall, where they hoped she'd bow low. Some smiles shine like gold, but hide venom, bitter than bile. Janelle took the train back to Brooklyn the next morning. No chauffeur, no silk robe, no mimosas waiting on a silver tray. Just the quiet hum of the city she came from, and the echo of Evelyn's voice. Something not so ghetto. She stared out the window, her reflection dark against the glass. Her dark skin, her full lips, her braided crown. The same features Evelyn had side-eyed over wine and caviar. Janelle had spent years unlearning the shame the world tried to teach her. Now here came another woman, white, rich, and cold as polished stone, trying to wrap it back around her neck like a chain. She wouldn't let her. She called Miss Didi first, the seamstress from Harlem who stitched dreams into fabric. Miss Didi didn't advertise, didn't need to. Word of mouth was enough. Her dresses walked runways, red carpets, and queens down church aisles. 10,000, Miss Didi said, not blinking. Janelle didn't flinch. She emptied half her savings, sold a pair of antique earrings her grandmother left her, and took a second job consulting for a luxury black-owned brand, because the dress wasn't just for the wedding, it was her battle armor. Over the next 6 weeks, she visited Didi's little brownstone studio. Velvet curtains, gospel music humming low, and fabrics whispering from every corner. Together they created a gown the color of storm clouds, with lace hand-stitched like lightning, a slit up the thigh just enough to remind them. This black woman didn't come to blend in. Didi measured her with eyes that saw more than numbers. "This dress ain't just cloth," she said. "It's your answer." And baby, Janelle wore that answer like scripture. Meanwhile, Evelyn kept planning the wedding like it was a debutante ball. "Everything must be tasteful," she reminded everyone. "Elegant, traditional," she asked Janelle, twice, if she'd consider straightening her hair. "The natural look is charming," Evelyn smiled. "But this is a Langford wedding." Janelle said nothing, just let the silence hum louder than any response. And Caleb, he noticed, The tension, the tight smiles, the way his mother always said Janelle's name like it was a question mark. But he didn't speak up. And silence, baby, is a betrayal too. The night before the wedding, Janelle stood alone in her mother's kitchen. Her mom poured tea and looked her in the eye. "You sure about this, baby girl?" Janelle nodded. "I'm not marrying his family. I'm marrying him." Her mother held her hand. "Just remember, your dignity don't come with a price tag. But that dress? It would make them pay attention." The next morning, she stepped out that black town car in heels high as her standards, and a dress that stopped the world. And Evelyn? She dropped her glass, and the silence that followed? Oh, baby, that was music. When Evelyn's wine glass shattered, it didn't just hit the marble. It cracked the air. The whole room turned, all silk gowns and stiff tuxedos, gasping behind champagne flutes. And there she was, Janelle, gliding through the doors of the Langford estate like royalty in exile, finally come home. Her skin glowed under the chandelier like polished mahogany. That storm-colored dress wrapped around her curves like vengeance dipped in velvet. No tiara, no pearls, just power, dignity, presence. Caleb stood by the altar, his jaw slightly slack, blinking like he'd never seen her before. And maybe he hadn't. Maybe this version of Janelle, the one who refused to shrink, who let her natural crown reach toward heaven like it was praying. Maybe that woman was new even to him. Evelyn recovered first. Of course she did. She bent to pick up the glass, but one of the staff beat her to it. "Oh," she murmured, dusting off her pride. "What a dramatic choice." Janelle smiled, just slightly. "I figured since the venue was so grand," she said, "I'd bring something to match." The women around Evelyn tittered, nervous, tight. Not a soul dared laugh loud. Janelle walked down that aisle alone. No father to give her away. No soft piano music. Just the sound of her heels echoing like a war drum on marble. Step by step, the silence grew louder. Even the officiant looked rattled. Caleb smiled, but there was something in his eyes. A flicker. Not awe. Not love. Something else. Like he was seeing the gap between the woman he thought he proposed to and the queen, now walking toward him. Janelle reached him, stood still, looked up into his face and whispered, "You ready?" He hesitated, just a blink too long, but the ceremony went on. Words were said, vows exchanged. When Evelyn handed over the ring, her fingers trembled, not from age, but from fear, because she realized, too late, that her weaponized elegance had backfired. Janelle wasn't broken. She'd been reborn. And baby, you know the funny thing? After the ceremony, when the guests lined up to offer stiff hugs and faker smiles, one of Evelyn's oldest friends, some countess or socialite or something, leaned in to Janelle and said, "That dress, exquisite. Valentino?" Janelle smiled. "Harlem, custom." She held the woman's gaze, something you can't buy off a rack. And when Caleb reached for her waist, she stepped slightly aside. Not cold, not rude, just sovereign. That's when Evelyn noticed it, the shift. Her son wasn't leading. Janelle was, and she didn't like it one bit. Later that night, when everyone was too tipsy to whisper right, Evelyn pulled Caleb aside. "You need to get a handle on your wife," she hissed. Caleb frowned. "What does that mean?" Evelyn narrowed her eyes. "She's taking up too much space. And Caleb, baby, he didn't say no. Didn't say yes either. He just looked away. That was the beginning of the unraveling, because some betrayals ain't loud. They just come wrapped in silence. And Janelle? She heard it. She felt it. She just hadn't opened the envelope yet. Yeah, baby. There was a letter, tucked in a drawer, written by a hand that shook while writing it. You want to know what it said? 3 weeks after the wedding, the Langford mansion was quieter than usual. The staff tiptoed. Caleb traveled more. Evelyn smiled less. And Janelle, she started noticing the little things. How her coffee came lukewarm in the morning. How the family photos on the hallway wall still didn't include her. How Evelyn would refer to her in the third person. She's in the garden. She prefers the guest wing. Like Janelle was a shadow in her own home. But it was one rainy afternoon that shifted everything. Evelyn was away at a luncheon. Caleb gone for a board meeting. Janelle wandered through the mansion, barefoot, her curls still damp from a midday shower. She found herself in Evelyn's study, a place she was never invited. The door had been left open just slightly, like temptation itself. Inside, everything smelled like old paper and rose perfume. Books lined the shelves like soldiers. Family crests hung on the walls like battle flags. On the mahogany desk, under a crystal paperweight shaped like a swan, was a letter, half-folded, unsealed. She shouldn't have looked, but when the world has tried to erase you, sometimes you read what was never meant for your eyes. It was addressed to a woman named Margaret Whitmore, some cousin or confidant of Evelyn's, but it was the first line that stole Janelle's breath. The wedding was as tasteful as could be expected, considering the bride. She sat down, eyes scanning, chest tightening. She wore a designer dress, yes, but one can't buy refinement. Her walk, her speech, even her presence, it all screams inner city. I fear for Caleb's future. This union may dilute the Langford legacy. Dilute, as if her blood was something to be watered down. Janelle's hand trembled, but her back stayed straight. She kept reading. I advised Caleb, privately, that perhaps he was mistaking infatuation for love, but he insists he sees something beautiful in her. That word, of course, means something different to men nowadays. And then, one final dagger. I'm giving it time. Sooner or later he'll see the mismatch. These kinds of marriages never last. Janelle folded the letter gently. Put it back under the paperweight. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She just sat there, letting the silence wrap around her like a winter coat. Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, something in her heart cracked. Not from pain, but from clarity. This wasn't her home. It was a battlefield wrapped in marble and manners. That night, Caleb kissed her cheek without looking in her eyes. And she wondered, was that silence, agreement, or cowardice? Either way, she knew now. Love can be blind. But dignity sees everything. And baby, Evelyn made one mistake too many. Because what she didn't know? That letter had a second page, and Janelle took a picture of it before she left that study. You want to know what was on that second page? Now some words cut like knives, but others, they slice the soul in silence. Janelle waited till nightfall. She curled up in the corner of that cold guest suite they gave her, not even the master room, mind you, and pulled out her phone, zoomed in on the photo. That second page, it wasn't just more of Evelyn's venom. It was instructions. Margaret, I've contacted the family attorney. There are clauses in the Langford Trust we can lean on, should this marriage begin to harm the public image of the estate. If Caleb chooses to leave her within the first year, the prenup ensures minimal damage. But we must act discreetly. Janelle's thumb trembled as she scrolled down. I'm planting seeds. Doubt is a powerful thing. And if that girl believes she doesn't belong, well, she'll eventually walk herself out. That was it. No signature. Just the initials. E.L. The bile rose in Janelle's throat, but she swallowed it. Because, see, that letter didn't just confirm Evelyn's hate. It confirmed her plan. They weren't waiting for her to fail. They were arranging it. She didn't sleep that night. Just lay there, listening to the rain patter on the windows, the way her mama's voice used to soothe her on stormy nights. But Mama wasn't here. And Janelle, she wasn't a little girl anymore. She was a Langford now, whether they liked it or not. The next morning she made breakfast, her hands steady, her dress simple, her hair wrapped like armor. Evelyn walked in late, purse tucked, lips painted sharp. Good morning, Janelle said calmly. Evelyn paused, then smiled. You seem rested. I am, Janelle replied. It's amazing what clarity can do. They sat at opposite ends of the long table, like queens of rival nations, and Janelle said nothing about the letter. Not yet, because timing, baby, is everything. She had 1 year. That's what Evelyn wrote. And in that year, Janelle would become the woman they tried to keep out of history books. But first, she had to figure out where Caleb stood. That night, she waited till the house was quiet. Then she opened his laptop. She wasn't proud of it, no. But survival ain't always pretty. And what she found in his email, that'll stop your breath, baby. Because Caleb, he wasn't just silent. He was complicit. You ready for the truth? She didn't want to find anything. Truly. Part of her hoped she'd open that laptop and see nothing but spreadsheets, flight itineraries, and fantasy football leagues. But curiosity is a cousin to grief. And what Janelle found? It changed her heartbeat. She searched Evelyn. Hundreds of emails came up. But one thread. It was recent. 3 days ago. Subject, regarding next steps. She clicked. The message was short. Too short. Mother, I told you. Please don't involve Margaret. Let me handle things in my own time. Janelle is smart, but also impulsive. She'll burn out the moment things get difficult. Just be patient. Janelle stared at the screen. Smart, but impulsive. She reread it. Once. Twice. Burnout? Like she was a phase. A moment. Not a woman. She closed the laptop gently, then stood in the dark room, heart beating like war drums. That was the moment she realized. Caleb never defended her because deep down, he didn't believe she belonged. He was waiting for her to prove Evelyn right. But oh, baby. Janelle was done proving herself, done walking on eggshells in $1,000 heels. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. Instead, she got dressed. Midnight black, soft silk, gold hoop earrings, the kind Evelyn once called distracting. And she walked out the mansion, took the train to Harlem, straight to Miss Didi, because this war wasn't just about love now. It was about legacy. And Janelle? She had a plan. Not for revenge, for justice. And the weapon? A will, one Evelyn thought she had full control over. But baby, Janelle was about to find out something Evelyn never meant her to see, and it would change everything. When Janelle stepped back into Didi's shop that night, the city was humming with summer heat. The smell of fried fish, sweet incense, and car horns mixed in the air. It was home, safe, real. Miss Didi didn't ask questions, just poured a glass of hibiscus tea and said, "Sit, baby." And Janelle did. She told her everything. The letter, the email, the silence. Miss Didi listened like the elders do, eyes closed, fingers tapping softly against her glass, lips pursed with wisdom that don't need sound. Then she said, "Evelyn's playing chess. But baby," she done underestimated the queen. That's when Janelle mentioned the family attorney. "I need to speak to him, discreetly." Miss Didi didn't blink. "Go through his assistant. They always know the cracks in a rich man's walls." And just like that, the plan began. 2 days later, Janelle found herself seated in a downtown cafe, across from a young black woman named Keisha. Sharp bob, sharper eyes, nails like stained glass. "You Langford's wife?" Keisha asked, sipping her latte. Janelle nodded. Keisha glanced around. "You didn't hear this from me," and slid a flash drive across the table. Evelyn been rewriting that estate plan for years. But her husband, Harold Langford Sr., he had a different vision before he passed. Janelle's hands trembled just touching it. She took it home, waited until Caleb left for his fencing class, plugged it into the desktop. What she found? Whew, baby. It was gold dressed like ink. Harold Langford Sr. had written an amendment to his will, one Evelyn had buried deep behind layers of legal fog. And in it, he wrote this: "Should Caleb ever marry a woman of color, I trust her judgment to be of equal or greater moral value than the family name. Any attempt to disenfranchise such a spouse from marital assets, inheritance, or decision-making shall be viewed as void and contradictory to my wishes. In plain terms, if my son chooses love the family, better learn how to honor it." Dated, notarized, but never filed. That document sat in the archives, hidden, forgotten, or so Evelyn hoped. But now, it was in Janelle's hands. And just like that, she wasn't a guest in that mansion anymore. She was the storm at the door. But storms, baby, they don't knock, they enter. And Evelyn, she was about to feel the thunder. The next Sunday, Janelle did something she never did before. She invited Evelyn to tea, out on the garden terrace, 3 p.m. sharp. Lavender biscuits, white linens, and a smile that hid fire. Evelyn arrived draped in Chanel and contempt. "Janelle?" she said with that usual tilt of her chin. "What's the occasion?" Janelle poured her a cup, sat across from her. "I thought we could finally talk. Woman to woman." Evelyn sipped. "Lovely thought." Janelle leaned in slightly. "You know, I read something fascinating this week about legacy. How sometimes The ones with all the power forget who really holds the pen. Evelyn blinked. Excuse me? Janelle smiled. I found Harold's amendment. The teacup paused in midair. You know, Janelle continued, the one where he said any attempt to strip a woman of color of her rights in this family would be, what was the phrase? Void and contradictory. Evelyn set the cup down. Too hard. Clink. You have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, I do. Janelle's voice was calm, flat, sharp like a polished blade. I have the document, and I have a lawyer reviewing it as we speak. Evelyn's face stayed composed, but her fingers clenched the napkin. You're bluffing. Janelle leaned back. I'm building. And baby, in that moment, Evelyn saw it. Not the girl from Brooklyn, not the dark-skinned woman she once called vibrant, like it was a curse, but a queen, with history on her side, truth in her hands, and dignity in her spine. Evelyn stood to leave, but not before whispering, You don't belong here. And Janelle, still seated, simply said, I don't need to belong. I own my place. The door closed, and for the first time, Evelyn didn't feel powerful. She felt small. But baby, the real blow hadn't landed yet. That would come at the charity gala, where secrets don't whisper, they scream. The Langford Annual Gala was the kind of event where people wore diamonds, like deodorant, and donated money just to see their names printed on velvet programs, held at the Plaza Hotel, ballroom lit like heaven, strings playing Bach in the corner, and judgment floating through the air like perfume. This was Evelyn's kingdom. And this year, Janelle was center stage. When she stepped out that luxury town car, cameras clicked. Not for Caleb, for her. A vision in deep plum silk, skin kissed in gold, afro shaped like a halo. Not the kind that floats above, but the kind that protects. The press leaned in. Mrs. Langford, who are you wearing? She smiled. Legacy. Inside the ballroom, Evelyn was already working the room. Air-kissing donors, laughing with bankers, clinking glasses with people who used urban like it was a diagnosis. But when Janelle walked in, the crowd shifted. A black woman with presence don't just walk in a room, baby. She rearranges it. Caleb was waiting near the bar, already nursing a drink. He gave her that tight-lipped smile. Nice dress. Janelle kissed his cheek. Nice to be acknowledged. Then she moved past him, toward the center, toward the podium. See what Evelyn didn't know. The charity being honored that year, Voices of Grace, a scholarship fund for inner-city girls, had a new silent donor. A donor who made a 6-figure contribution under a quiet alias. Alias S. Taylor Langford. That name was about to go public. Evelyn took the stage first. Talked about tradition, about values, about upholding the integrity of the Langford name. Folks clapped politely. Too politely. Then came the host. This year's largest donor surprised us. But their generosity, their spirit, truly represents a bridge between legacy and justice. Please welcome Janelle Taylor Langford. The room fell silent. Janelle walked up slow, not with arrogance, with grace, took the mic. Good evening. I come from Flatbush, from Sunday braids on kitchen stools, from public school hallways that smelled like disinfectant and determination. She let that sit. I married into this family thinking love would be enough, but I learned real quick. Sometimes love can be blind, but hate dresses itself up in pearls and proper grammar. Murmurs. I was told I was too much, too loud, too ghetto. She looked straight at Evelyn. But let me be clear. If loving where I come from makes me ghetto, then may every girl in Harlem wear that title like a crown. People started clapping, first scattered, then strong. Evelyn's face didn't move, but her knuckles whitened around her flute of champagne. Janelle smiled. This donation isn't from the Langfords. It's from a woman who knows what it means to fight for her seat at the table and build a longer one when she's denied. Roaring applause. And in that moment, Evelyn was no longer the queen of the room. Janelle was. But baby, just when the night felt like victory, Caleb pulled her aside, whispered something that chilled her blood. You weren't supposed to go public. That money? It's tied to the Langford account. My name is on those wires. She stepped back, stared into his pale, privileged eyes. You mean You didn't know I used your name? He blinked. No. And if this goes sideways, they'll blame me. She stared at him like she was finally seeing the truth, and in that moment she realized Caleb wasn't her shield. He was her liability. And baby, a storm was brewing inside that marriage. One only. The truth could survive. You want to know what she found in his safe the next morning? The mansion was quiet the next morning. Too quiet. Caleb had gone for a run. Evelyn was still nursing whatever rage she sipped overnight. And Janelle, she walked into the office. Caleb's office. Something had been tugging at her. Not suspicion. Intuition. She stood there, still in her silk robe, bare feet on cold wood floors, looked at the safe tucked behind the bookshelf, the one Caleb once bragged about. Fingerprint activated, ultra-secure. But baby, he'd left it open. Sloppy men always underestimate the women they lie to. Inside, documents, financial statements, stock papers, but also a folder, marked simply, prenup. She opened it and saw what Evelyn meant in her letter. There were provisions, clauses, all designed to make Janelle disposable within 12 months. But tucked at the bottom, a note, handwritten, in Caleb's script. In the event that things escalate, she can't find out about the Foundation Trust. Keep the Harlem property off record. Her blood ran cold. The Harlem property. Miss Dee Dee's building. She flipped through the back of the folder. There it was. Caleb had purchased the deed months ago. Under a shell corporation. Dee Dee didn't even know. The building was in his control. Janelle's safe place. Her sanctuary. Her origin. He held it like leverage. Like a leash. She dropped the file back into the safe. No tears, no scream. Just a breath. One long, heavy breath. Then she pulled out her phone. Called someone she hadn't spoken to in years. Someone who knew Harlem real estate. Someone who owed her a favor. "Uncle Vernon," she whispered. "It's time. I need to move something. Quietly. Because if Caleb wanted war, he just opened the wrong door. You ready to see how she flipped the power?" Uncle Vernon wasn't blood. But he was family, the kind that shows up with a toolbox and a shotgun when your world starts crumbling. He used to run numbers in the 80s, turned legit in the 2000s, owned 3 brownstones, 2 bodega lots, and more secrets than a Sunday sermon. When Janelle called him, he showed up the next day. Wide shoulders, gray beard, and a Yankee-fitted cap, tilted like attitude. She met him on the corner of 139th and Lenox, outside Miss Dee Dee's shop. The same stoop where she once sold lemonade as a girl. "Tell me everything," Vernon said. And she did. About Caleb. The prenup. The Harlem deed hidden like a threat. He didn't interrupt. Didn't blink. Then he muttered, "That boy messed with the wrong roots." Turns out the deed Caleb bought wasn't as clean as he thought. Vernon pulled out a folder. Showed her something she hadn't expected. Dee Dee never filed the full transfer. The building's still in probate under a communal trust from her grandfather's will. That LLC he used has no teeth here. Not without Harlem's blessing. Janelle blinked. "You're saying he doesn't own it?" "I'm saying," Vernon said. "You do, if you want it." She looked at the brownstone, the peeling paint, the soul in every brick. That building held her childhood whispers, her mama's foot rubs, Dee Dee's sewing needles, and the scent of cornbread cooling on windowsills. Caleb thought it was leverage. But Harlem don't fold to papers. It folds to presents. That night, Janelle went home. Didn't say a word. Just cooked dinner like normal. Fried catfish, greens, cornbread. Caleb's favorite. He walked in late. Tie loosened. Eyes tired. What's the occasion?" She smiled. "Just thinking about home." He sat. Ate. Didn't notice her watching him. Then she placed a copy of the Harlem deed next to his plate. He blinked. "What is this?" "Your bluff," she said softly. "Just folded." He picked it up, confusion turning to fear. "How did you—" "I grew up in a world where everything I loved was always at risk, so I learned how to protect mine." He stood, defensive now. "You're reading too much into things." "No, I'm reading exactly what you wrote." "And Caleb?" "I read it clearly." Then she walked away. No yelling. No tears. Because when a black woman finally sees the game, she stops playing and starts rewriting the rules. But what she didn't know? That same night, Evelyn made one final move. One that could rip everything apart. A phone call. To a lawyer. And a name she never should have mentioned. You ready to hear what Evelyn tried to bury next? That phone call. It happened at 2:13 a.m. Evelyn couldn't sleep. She never could when power slipped through her fingers. So she did what desperate women do. She called an old friend, Arthur Manning, family lawyer, Langford loyalist, but also keeper of old sins. She whispered down the line. She's weaponized the Harlem property. I told you this would happen, Arthur replied. I want the alternate clause reinstated, the one from before Harold revised the will. Arthur went quiet, then sighed. That clause was tied to her mother. Evelyn's voice turned cold. I know. Arthur clicked through files. Evelyn, are you sure? If this comes out, it could damage the Langford name far more than... I'm not asking, she snapped. I'm telling you, find her birth certificate. Trace it back. If her mother's record matches the one I remember, we can invoke the legitimacy clause. Janelle's mama. That's who Evelyn meant. See, years ago, when Janelle's mother was still working nights as a nurse, she took care of someone tied to the Langford family. And according to Evelyn, there was history there. History that could call Janelle's entire marriage into question. If she's not who she says she is, Evelyn whispered, we can have the whole marriage annulled. Arthur hesitated. Evelyn, that girl's got Harlem at her back. You might be digging up a hornet's nest. I'm done waiting for her to leave. Now I'm going to make her disappear. What Evelyn didn't know. That same night, Janelle was on the phone with her mama. And what her mama said? It changed everything. Because, baby, Janelle ain't just married into the Langfords. She's tied to them in blood. And Evelyn, she just set fire to a secret that was never hers to control. Janelle sat on the edge of her childhood bed, phone pressed to her ear, fingers digging into the old quilt Mama made from church dresses and worn denim. The room smelled like eucalyptus and lavender oil. Mama, I need to ask you something, she said softly. Her mother paused. I figured this day might come. Janelle swallowed. Do you know the name? Evelyn Langford. Silence, long and heavy. Then a sigh, deep and trembling. I know her, Mama whispered. Lord knows I do. Janelle's heart pounded. What is she to you? Another pause. She's nothing now. But once, she was my employer. What? I was 19, hired as a live-in nurse. Took care of her husband's father, Mr. Langford Sr. This was before they moved upstate. I stayed in the guest quarters for 2 years. Janelle's throat tightened. But, Mama, Evelyn's trying to use some clause tied to your name. Saying you were... I wasn't no affair, her mother cut in, voice hard like stone. But there was a man, not Harold Langford. His brother, Edward. Janelle's breath caught. Edward Langford, she whispered. Her mother's voice softened. He was kind, gentle, treated me with respect. But he was troubled, sick in ways money can't fix. We had a moment. That's all I'll say. Janelle stood. The room spun. Mama, are you saying... I'm saying I never asked for nothing from them. But if they dig, baby, they might find something that makes your last name more Langford than Caleb's. Boom. The weight of that truth sat down in Janelle's chest like thunder. What happened to Edward? She asked, voice barely above breath. He died in rehab. Evelyn erased him from the family history, like he never existed. But he didn't leave you nothing? No, her mother said quietly. But he left you. Janelle sat down, hands shaking. The Langfords didn't just hate her for her skin, her voice, her pride. They feared her because she was them. Not by marriage, by blood. And Evelyn, she'd known. That's why she pushed. That's why she clawed. That's why she fought like Janelle was the ghost of a past she'd buried beneath pearls and polished lies. Janelle whispered, Thank you, Mama. Her mother didn't cry. Just said, You walk in there with your head high. You don't belong in that house, baby. You own it. That night, Janelle didn't sleep. She started writing. A letter. A statement. A reckoning. Because Evelyn wanted the truth. She was about to get it. Broadcasted. Public. Unfiltered. And Caleb, he was gonna have to choose a side. Because you can't serve a woman like Janelle. Half love and half silence. You ready to hear what she did at the Langford Foundation brunch? The Langford Foundation brunch was the family's pride event. Every July, polished lawns, live jazz, news cameras. Evelyn stood tall on the balcony, dressed in ivory, smiling for the photographers like a queen, who never lost a battle. But below, Janelle arrived in crimson. Not red, crimson. The color of courage, of bloodline, of truth. And baby, every step she took across that garden, every pair of eyes followed. Caleb stood by the fountain, suit crisp, jaw tight. "You shouldn't be here," he said under his breath. She looked him square in the eye. "Then why am I on the guest list?" He blinked, and she walked away, straight to the mic. Guests murmured. Even the servers paused. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, voice steady, "I'd like to thank the Langford family for today's generosity. But I can't stand here and let a lie keep living beneath all this silverware and fake laughter." Evelyn stood frozen. "Before this brunch ends, I want to share a truth, not just about me, but about the legacy this family tried to hide." She pulled out the document, her mother's statement, Edward's letter, a DNA confirmation. Gasps rippled. "I am not just the wife of Caleb Langford," Janelle said. "I am the niece of Edward Langford, the brother Evelyn erased, the one they never speak of, the one whose blood runs through mine." The silence was explosive. Caleb stepped forward. "Janelle? No. You had a choice. You chose comfort. I choose truth. And then it happened." One of the staff dropped a tray. It struck the edge of the easel holding the Langford family portrait. The canvas fell, face down, hard. And baby, that was the sound of a dynasty cracking. Guests whispered. Photographers clicked. And Evelyn, she just stared. Because the past she tried to bury was now standing in heels with a microphone, reclaiming her place. And Janelle, she turned to leave. No drama, no apology, just power. "But we ain't done yet, baby. There's still one chapter left, the finale. You ready to see how it ends?" 2 months later, the Langford estate was quieter than ever. The air had shifted. The halls didn't echo the same. Evelyn stayed mostly upstairs, curtains drawn, her power dimmed like a chandelier with frayed wires. Caleb, he moved out, said he needed time, to think, to heal. But some silences don't heal, they confirm. And Janelle, she stayed, not out of pride, out of principle, because the same house that tried to exile her now answered to her name on the deed. You see, baby, the truth don't just set you free. Sometimes it rebuilds the entire damn house. After the brunch fallout, press dug up everything. The will, the clause, the bloodline. Public sympathy fell on Janelle like soft rain. And donors, they backed her. Not Evelyn, because people tired of legacies built on silence and silk-wrapped racism. Janelle took over the Langford Foundation, turned it from a vanity project to a vessel of purpose. She moved funding into schools across Harlem, started a legal aid program for black girls navigating inheritance law, opened scholarships in Edward Langford's name. She didn't erase the Langfords, she rewrote them. The mansion changed too. No more portraits of Evelyn in the grand hallway. No more subtle segregation between family and staff. She had the walls painted in earth tones, mahogany, sienna, onyx, colors that told the truth. And on the fireplace in the front drawing room hung a new portrait, one done by a black woman artist from Brooklyn, oil on canvas. It showed Janelle standing beneath a magnolia tree, barefoot, holding her mother's hand, her head held high, her skin rich and undimmed, a quiet fire in her eyes. People came just to see it, even Evelyn. She walked in one morning, slow and stiff, looked up at that frame, didn't say a word, just stood there, until Janelle spoke. "They said I didn't belong in this house," Evelyn turned. "But now," Janelle whispered, "my face watches over it." Evelyn's eyes misted. Not regret, just exhaustion. "I tried to protect a name," she said. "No," Janelle replied, soft but firm. "You tried to protect power. And in doing so, you almost erased what made this name worth carrying." Evelyn nodded. Once, then left. No fight, no farewell. Just a woman leaving the stage, after realizing the play ain't hers anymore. And Janelle? She stood in the doorway, barefoot still, her crown invisible but undeniable. She had lost a love, but found something richer. Herself. And maybe, baby, that's the kind of love that never leaves. So if this story touched your heart like it touched mine, leave a word below. Aunt Grace is always here, with stories for souls that been through the fire and came out shining. The end.